Hi everyone, this is Sharon. Today I am bringing you a quick and short impromptu tutorial. Paula, one of my viewers, recently asked me if I would do a tutorial on how I do my decorative stitching along some of my page edges. I think she saw it in another journal that I showcased recently. I might have done it along the edge of a page or the edge of a tag maybe. But for this tutorial, I thought I would show how I did it along the edge of this top tuck. And I'm just working on this journal right now. So I did my stitching on this tuck first, and then I glued it down to the page. And I glued it so that the stitching is just peeking over slightly on the edge on both sides of the page. And this is no more than just a simple blanket stitch, so I will show you exactly how I do it. Okay, I have my pocket, and my first step is going to be to pre-punch some holes along the edges where I want to stitch. I find that pre-punching the holes does a couple of things. One, it makes it so much easier to get your needle through while you're stitching. And secondly, it avoids those unwanted poked holes that you might get in there, especially if you're coming from the bottom up. When you have them pre-punched, they're just, you can get them more even. I've already tried doing it without, and it's just hard to tell where you want to poke your needle. So the tool I'm using today is this awl. If you don't have an awl, you could just use a plain, like large needle to poke your holes. I've even used this paper punch. It's a 1/16 inch hole paper punch. Get some really clean holes that way. I just thought it'd be easier for you to see if I use my awl. So I'm going to start up in this corner, work my way across, and then down because that's where I want to put my stitching. Underneath, I have this felt pad. It's used for quilting and stitching. You could also poke your holes into a magazine or a telephone book or something like that, just something to absorb the shock of the awl. I like to put my holes about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge and then about 1/8 of an inch apart from each other. So we are going to make quite a few holes in here. Okay, I have all my holes poked in. I don't know if you can see them on camera. It's kind of a dark paper, but they go up and down the side. So for stitching, I am going to use this hemp thread. I don't know what to call it or what weight it is. I found it on this old spool at a local thrift shop, which are great places to find sewing and embroidery stitching supplies. I would say it's about the weight of maybe a 6-ply embroidery thread, which you could also use for this. Any kind of really lightweight string, I think, would work. Okay, so I'm going to start down in this corner and then work my way up and across this way. And the stitch I'm using is a simple blanket stitch. And it just, because this string is rather coarse, it gives it a really nice loopy effect, kind of a lacy, almost crocheted look. So I'm going to poke from the back to the front, and I put a knot at the end of my string. I didn't mention that. And then I'm going to go back through that same hole again from the back and pull my knot out a little bit from the back to the front. And that just kind of anchors that corner. And now I'm going to go into my next hole from back to front. And this is where, if you've done the blanket stitch, you know how this goes. Then you have this little loop there. You pull it all the way through until you've got a loop. You put your needle, thread it through that loop, and pull it. Now, if you pull it really tight, your blanket stitch will be tight against your piece of paper. Now, I like to leave it just a little bit loose so it's kind of loopy and lacy looking. you have to play around with that. And it doesn't have to be exactly even all the way around either. I think that just gives it a nice handcrafted look if it's a little uneven and wonky. So now I'm just going to keep going on this. You can see I'm starting to form some loops, and having those holes pre-punched really makes it go a lot faster. I'm just gonna put a few more in here before we take a look. This does kind of twist and turn a little bit, so you gotta kind of straighten your thread eventually. I usually just let it hang and dangle to untwist itself. And whoops. Oh, that went right off the camera. Okay. So you can see we're starting to get a little bit of a pattern there that looks kind of lacy and loopy. All right, let me get my thread straight here. Okay, I will just keep going, and I will speed up the camera. I'll do one more slow one, just so you get, but there are tons of tutorials out there on YouTube on how to do the blanket stitch. But again, after I pull through my loop, I'm coming from the back to the front. I'm pulling it pretty much all the way through until I have a little bit of a loop left. And then from front to back, I put my needle through that loop and pull it. And that's all you do all the way around. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to stop for just a moment now that I've gotten to my corner. I wanted to mention that when I do the corners, just to make the corner a little bit more eye-pleasing and a little more rounded, I actually do 2 stitches in that last corner hole. So I just did one now. Now I'm going to come from the back and go through that same hole again and do another stitch. And that just kind of rounds that corner nicely instead of just having a gap in there. And now I will turn my corner and go down the next side and finish it up all the way down this way. Okay, I'm going to stop the fast motion again and talk about the fact that I didn't quite have enough string to go all the way to the end. I usually try to get enough string so that I can go all the way so I don't have to stop and start. Sometimes it's feasible and sometimes it isn't. If you have a really long stretch, the length of thread you might need would just be too long to work with. So this one, I had a string that was about 3 times my length, probably 3.5 to 4 times the length of what I'm stitching would be about what I need. So no big deal. If I have to stop and start, what I usually do is go to the back of my work and I'll just kind of loop it around the last stitch and make a little knot. I don't have much string left here, but I'll just tie a little knot just to kind of secure that. Try to keep it looking the same in the front. And then what I usually do is just take my needle and run it through a few stitches before I cut it off. I'll see if I can do that here because I didn't leave a very long tail. So I'm going to stick that through, try rethreading it. Okay, and then pull it through. So now I've got a little bit of a tail on there, and I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, so from the front, we won't be able to tell the difference. Now I'll get some more thread and start again. I've got another length of thread. I put a knot in the back. So I'm just going to go, not in the new hole that I haven't used yet, but in the last one. So I'm going to come from the back to the front and just kind of pull that through. And then I'm going to loop it on this last loop again, just to kind of get that started. And then go into my next hole from the back, go through my loop, and finish it off. Okay, I made my way all the way around. Now I'm just going to finish this last stitch off similar to what I did when I ran out of my string. I'm just going to go through that last loop one more time. And let's see, how do I want to do this? Let's work it to the back. Somehow I have to work it to the back so that I can knot it back here. And I do it honestly, a little bit different every time, but I don't think it really matters as long as you have a way to kind of secure your string at the end. So I'm just going to knot this. And then again, just kind of run it through the back side of a few stitches. And then I'm going to cut that off. And there we have our finished piece with our kind of loopy sort of blanket stitch on there. And here's my journal that I'm working on right now. And my thought is to glue it to the top of this page so that the lacy part hangs over and will kind of show along this side of the page also. So let me glue that on and I will show you what it looks like. Okay, so I glued my pocket with some art glitter glue onto this journal page. And I like the lacy look of the edging. And then if we turn it back this way, this is onion skin, this paper. On this side, you can also see the stitching. But all my extra threads and everything are hidden behind the page. So I hope you found that little tutorial useful and maybe get you thinking about how you could use a similar type of application in your journals. Like I said, you can use it on pockets, page edges. Sometimes I'll do a whole edge of the page or a section as sort of a tab. That's another fun look. I've done it along the bottom of tags, wherever you want a little embellishment. So thank you so much for coming along with me today. I really appreciate it. And until next time, bye-bye.